Hi everyone, and welcome to the 7th session in Boma's Online Marketing Made Easy series. My name is Charles Clark, and I look after the marketing here at Boma. I'm joined again today by Liz Studholme, who looks after our content. She's our content manager here. Hi Liz.
Hello, hi everyone. Nice to be back.
Fantastic. So today is the penultimate session in our series. And in case you've missed any of the previous ones, you can find them all on our Boma Marketing YouTube channel. They're in the webinar series 2018 playlist. So today we're going to discuss basically how we put everything that we've talked about in the last 6 sessions, how we sort of put it all into a plan, and with the ultimate goal of being, how do we actually take the first steps to make it all happen? How do we actually start marketing? So we've talked about, and I'll just give you a quick recap, we've talked about a lot of things in the last 6 weeks. And it's important to think of these things as your marketing foundations. And I know that Ian and I talked about that on the very first session. We talked about your brand, in particular, how to move from just having a logo to having a brand, and why this is so critical. If you have a brand, not just a logo, then that means that you put a lot of thought into what your proposition is, because your brand isn't just a logo, it's also your proposition, what it is in 1 or 2 sentences that tells your customers who you are, what makes you different from the others, and why they should choose you. We've also talked about creating an effective website. This is obviously your portal to the world, and the first port of contact for many people when they start to look at you as they consider whether or not they want to work with you, and that also goes for word of mouth referrals. I think we've talked about that number being 80% will, even if they have a referral, will check you out online just to make sure that you match what they've heard about you, that they like the look of what you're doing. We covered briefly SEO, and this was really all about getting found online. There's no point having a great website if you're not doing all the things you can to make sure that when people search for maybe a product or service that you're offering, that they don't then, it's not easy for them to find you. So this was everything from making sure you had really fantastic web pages, but also relevant content that really spoke to what people might be interested in. We had a great session on thought leadership, and I know you all are particularly keen on this because as we face, I suppose, the move away from just being if you're an accountant or bookkeeper, just sort of looking at the numbers and to more of an advisory business, then obviously thought leadership is really one of the most powerful ways that you can assist your building or assist your business on that journey. And lastly, last week, Liz and I talked to you about social media. A lot of people, I suppose, are unsure whether or not it's a channel or channels they should be on. And last week really tried to drive home the point that it is absolutely crucial. So your audience definitely will be on social media. Obviously, you need to think about where they might be, but really you can't afford not to be on there. So really, the first stage in any plan is understanding what your goals are. If you don't have goals, it's very hard to then say what we're going to do next and how to measure any outcomes that you have against those. So really, first stage is having your goals.
And I think, Charlie, I'd add in there, those goals, you want to make those realistic, don't you, for your firm, so that they motivate you rather than you look at them and go, right, well, that's too difficult. I'll get back to my day-to-day work.
And I think they can be, I think if you made a goal that was just like, we want more clients, or we just want to increase profitability, it's a bit nebulous. I think you want to think quite hard about what actually it is that you want to achieve. Again, so you can measure it, you can measure them, and you can work towards them. So a couple of goals that might be on the cards if you're an accountant bookkeeper would be that we want to grow the size of our advisory business. And it might be general advisor, it might be specific, it might be specific tax, a tax advisory, or maybe it's something to do with succession planning. So don't be afraid of actually really drilling down and thinking about what it is that you want to be specifically working towards. It could also be something else along the lines of, we would like to be seen in the industry as experts about something. And so that really speaks to, I suppose, thought leadership. But obviously, you know, great to have that goal, and then we can talk about later on in this webinar how you would then take the steps to go there.
Yeah, and that will become the sort of the thing that you measure all your other content against. Okay, is it achieving that goal? That will really help when you define your action points in your marketing plan. If you're saying, okay, we want to increase our word of mouth referrals for succession planning, or you know, or the agricultural, we want more agricultural clients. Then every piece of content or everything that you do from there will help to feed into that goal.
Exactly. So I'm sure you've heard this all before, and it's whether you're in school or training for a marathon or sort of doing a marketing plan, you do need a plan. And by a plan, we mean that you need to sketch out and write down what it is that you're going to do to achieve your goal. So this might be a number of things. So if your goal was thought leadership, or one of your goals was thought leadership, that's actually, there's a number of elements that need to go into there to feed it. So one of them might be that you're going to start creating content on a particular area that you want to become a thought leader in. So you're going to create content on that. Then you need to think, okay, well, I need to distribute it. So then you need to have a distribution plan. So that might be on social media, or it could be on email. Also, you want to raise your profile. So how do you go about doing that? Well, there's a number of ways. It could be that you start hosting events, and they don't need to be large events, but you could start bringing in your clients and talking to them about an area that you're passionate and expert in. Or it could be hooking up with external agencies, possibly, obviously Xero is a great one, or your local bank or building society, and going along and presenting at their events. So what we're sort of really saying is, you need to sort of say, right, this is my overall goal, these are my practice goals, my business goals, and then what specifically will I do for each of them to start achieving them. I think, and also another thing to think about is that a lot of people say, well, you know, I'm pretty happy with my business and it's all ticking along fine, so I don't really need to do any marketing. And Liz and I came across a really interesting piece of research by Bain & Company, which said that if you increase your attention by 5%, you increase your profitability by 25%. And this was sort of over the wider professional services, but I think it does apply to accountants and bookkeepers. I think the point they're trying to make is that it's always cheaper and more cost effective to retain your current clients and to, I suppose, move them higher up the value chain rather than have to find new clients. Who, you know, it takes you time to find them, it takes time to build those relationships, and that all takes money. And you may not want to spend, you know, having to sort of rebuild those relationships the whole time. So, you know, one of your goals, your practice goals could be like, I want to make sure that I don't have any clients leave or any of my top 10 clients leave. So I want to retain them. So what am I going to do to retain them? So I'm going to start giving them added value content. I'm going to invite them to events. I'm going to make sure that whenever they come onto our social pages, they see really insightful content and commentary, just so that they always get the feeling that I'm at the top of my game, I care about them, and I build and strengthen that relationship. So once you've got those goals and you've got that plan, it's all great to say, well, we're just going to do some events and we're just going to do some social. But Liz, you know, who works now all our content for us, you know, can attest that you really need to then map it all out. You know, whether you map it out for 6 months, the next couple of quarters, or the whole year, you really need to map everything out, because that's really the only way to keep track of everything.
Yeah, I think that's right. If you have said, we've talked about the plan, right? I'm going to do a blog post once a fortnight or once a month or whatever you think is achievable for your firm or for your practice. That's not enough. It's really worthwhile at this point putting some specific around those things. So if it is succession planning we've talked about, or an area of tax, or across an industry such as retail or something, or small business, then put some specific ideas and as to what those topics will be, and mining what your current clients are asking you for is useful. So go into your inbox and look at what they're and we've talked about that, I think, in the content marketing and sort of, earlier webinars. And then where am I going to put that, and how am I going to do that? How am I going to share that with people? Is it going to be through an industry event? Is it going to be across Facebook, or am I going to do a blog post that I then share in this way? So once you've got those, that plan as to what you want to do, then starts putting some specifics around it, so that when that time comes to do it, you're not staring at an empty screen. You've actually got some ideas, and plus you know that all of those things, because you've done it all within your plan and while you're thinking about your goals, are going to help amplify that message.
And I think the nice thing is that everything we've talked about, the thought leadership, the website, the SEO, the brand, they don't all live separately, they're all together. So if you're putting out, so if you're going to an event, this is a good example. So you're going into an event, you don't just turn up to the event, give your talk and then leave. What you do, what a lot of people do is that, they signal it. So they say on social media, great to be invited to this event. I'm going to be speaking on this topic, hope to see you there. And then maybe at the same time, you put a piece on your blog, you write a piece on your blog, which explores your vision for this topic. And so at the same time that you're at the event, maybe, or in the day or two afterwards, you post that. So people that have heard you and they say, oh, that was a fantastic talk. They go maybe to your Twitter page or your Facebook or LinkedIn or web page, and they see a whole article on everything, and maybe in longer form, that you've talked about. So it's just, I suppose, everyone is, all the different channels and elements are supporting each other. And so nothing exists in a vacuum. So that's how you start to leverage, and as Liz said, to amplify your messaging. And also, if you are doing just a blog post, don't just pop it onto your blog, obviously put it out across all your social channels, talk about it, mention it at the event that you're going to. And, because ideally you will have had an engaged following, because every time you put something out, it's going to the goals that you've talked about. It's answering those questions that your clients are interested in. Hopefully they'll start to both read it, but also share it and comment on it. And there's nothing like validation by other people, I suppose, to build that trust in your in what it is that you're communicating. And if you sort of do these things, and if you have maybe someone who is looking for a presenter on something, and they start going online and searching, who knows lots about succession planning in Australia or in New Zealand, your name will start to come up, because it'll come up because you've been invited to previous events, that you've got blog posts or Twitter posts on it, and then they'll start to read them. And that's really how it happens. You don't always have to rely on a phone call. Obviously, a phone call is fantastic, someone reaches out directly, but oftentimes they're reaching out because someone has said, this person knows what they're doing. I saw them at an event. I read something that they wrote, and it was really spot on.
And actually, that's probably true in choosing professional services supply. You would. It is often the culmination of a number of things. That you might have seen them at an event, you might have seen a post they've written, you may have heard someone else comment on, because as you start to build, as we talked about with Viv on thought leadership, as you start to build that body of insight and commentary, and you gain that reputation as an expert in a field, you start to get referrals. Those things all start building up. Then they go onto your website and see, oh, there's a great blog post, and on their homepage I can see very clearly what this company will do for me. All of those things are the reasons why you choose to work with someone, and particularly when it's in an industry like accounting and bookkeeping, where trust is so important.
Mm. So I suppose the final point, and we really need to emphasize this, is what suppose it's 2 points. One is get started. And all too often businesses of every description in many industries, think about it and then they're too busy. It's too much work, or they're not quite sure how to get started, and so they don't, and they delay it another 6 months or a year. Meanwhile, either the industry is changing, so in accounting and bookkeeping, there's a lot of disruption. Obviously, Xero's coming in and all the add-ons and making it so that, if you're reliant, as maybe, many people in this industry were sort of 25 years ago, on the sort of bread and butter bookkeeping or sort of number crunching, well, things are changing to the point where you really need to be talking advisory, and people, would buy advisory services in a different way they, would buy someone who's just going to do their accounts. They're quite different need states for a client. So they want then to understand that you really know what you're talking about, because, well, anyone can probably do the books. Doing advisory specifically on an area is more niche, it's more specialist. And so that's a different process of them getting to you and reaching out to you. So first is getting started, because if you're not, you can bet that everyone else is. Everyone else, will be starting to take these small steps to market themselves. And then if you notice that your word of mouth referral maybe isn't as great as it used to be, it's probably because other people have started to get those referrals. And secondly is consistency. And I think Liz and I both, the undercurrent in the last couple of minutes is really, you need to be doing a number of different things, but also you need to do them over time. If you think of a relationship with anyone, like a good friend, you didn't just meet them once and say, great, we're going to be best friends, and I'm going to tell you all my secrets and we're going to go on holiday. You met them, and over time you built up that understanding of what they needed, and it does take, a long time. And so it's similar with your marketing and sort of building that relationship with your clients. Just putting out one post or attending one event isn't a recipe for success. You really need to be on all these platforms all the time. You need to be putting out a steady cadence of content. And this is something that, if you put the work into it now, you will see a payoff. But as I said, don't expect a payoff just because you put one blog post out there. That's just not how it works.
But I think to counter that also is that it can be very overwhelming, can't it?
True.
I need to do digital marketing. Now, you may be new to some of those social platforms. You may be new to writing blog posts. The thing is that it's actually all about relationships. It's all about building community. Getting started is simply start sharing the stuff that you already have. You're already an expert, so start sharing that, and make a bit of time, I would say, every week where you can say, right, what have we done? What are we going to do next? If you're more than a one-member team, then share it out, and everyone's viewpoints are valid and useful. And if you may have different expertise, specialisms in your firm, so work to those, and maybe bring that sort of overarching message, such as the small business experts, across those the insights that you're sharing. But yeah, I think if you've got a plan, that if you've put the work into the plan, then you really want to start doing it. And it's as simple as just, right, let's every week or every fortnight, when you talk about the work in progress, or look at the work in progress that you've got on, what am I doing now to tell people about what I can offer?
That's a good point, Liz. And I think to something you just mentioned there, in terms of passing it out to your team, if you have a wider team, and that really goes back to making sure that you have the goals set. And so when you set those goals, they really shouldn't just be set by one person with no input from anyone else. Making sure that you have the buy-in from the rest of your organisation, so that everyone is clear on what it is that you're trying to achieve. So when it comes to, as Liz said, sharing the load, someone's not going to go off and sort of be completely inconsistent with what you're trying to achieve. They'll understand what it is that as a business you're trying to do, and then they'll think about, okay, so like I might have an expertise in something slightly different to you, but that's fine because I can put it on the same track. And so, if the idea is to, grow the advisory piece, well, then my expertise on on tax advice, say, are relevant because this helps improve, our status as a advisory for tax. Even if, we've also talked about advisory for succession planning, is the fact that you have multiple people, in fact, talking about different specialisms within your firm is actually, would be really positive, because then people would say, look, I can go to these people for numerous services, not just one thing. Great. So I know this has been quick, but we obviously aim to keep you not at your desk for too long when watching these. So I hope it's been useful, just giving you a bit of information on how to go about, I suppose, enacting everything that we've been talking about, and just taking those first crucial steps towards having your marketing plan together. And I think what you'll find that you might have to do a bit of work to initially set it up, but once it's there and you have that calendar and you can see exactly what's coming up, there's actually it's not so hard to sort of to keep it going. And obviously practice makes perfect. And so if you're having trouble maybe writing, or if you're a little bit unsure of quite how to post things, as Liz said, post things you already have, or start slowly on the writing front, you'll get easier. You'll find your voice and your tone, and it will become less of a stress or an anxiety, if this is the first time that you've ever done something like this. So the one bit that we haven't touched on today, and is really, deserves its own session, and it's what we're talking about next week, is if you're doing all this activity, you really want to understand what's working and what's not. And by that I mean, looking at the analytics, looking at the return on investment, so you can say, right, we need to focus more on doing events because we can see that we're getting a lot of work through that. Or actually, doing the content pieces, we're not getting as much as we thought from that. So let's maybe try to do more social media because we were only doing email and that wasn't giving us the results we have. So next week, it's really about understanding, what's working and what's not, and then giving you the ability to then readjust and amend and refine your practices going forward. Great, so I think that's it from us today. Thanks always to Liz. Thanks for joining us, keeping us company.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
And we'll see you all again on the next session.